Welcome to the Fascia-Informed Therapist, the essential podcast for occupational therapy professionals looking to deepen their understanding of fascia's pivotal role in therapy and health. I'm your host, Amy Mayer, an experienced occupational therapist, practice owner, and dedicated educator. Here we'll dive into the fascinating world of fascia, exploring its significance in the human body and its critical influence on occupational therapy practice. Each episode will bring you cutting-edge insights, expert interviews, and practical strategies to help you confidently integrate the science of fascia into your therapeutic approach. Whether you're a seasoned practitioner or just starting out, our goal is to equip you with high-quality, evidence-based, and fascia-informed continuing education opportunities that will enhance your skills and benefit your clients. So join us as we unravel the complexities of fascia and transform the way you practice occupational therapy. All health and wellness practitioners are welcome. Let's learn, grow, and evolve together. Hi, I'm Amy, and this is another edition of the Fascia-Informed Therapist. And today I have Lisa Basili, a good friend and integrative psychotherapist and a colleague that does workshops with me. Hi, Lisa.
Good morning. That
Yes,
was a lot.
we both did our hairs and tried to put on a nice shirt, but admittedly, both likely have sweatpants on the bottom, right?
That is true, but here I'll zipper up a little bit more just to make it.
Okay. So Lisa and I have been friends for, gosh, I don't know, uh, approaching a decade and a half, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. It's been a while.
And yeah. And Lisa has been a psychotherapist for how long now?
20 plus years.
Okay. Give us just a little bit of background on like go back to like briefly your education and then your career and where you are now and about your practice.
Yeah, I have a master's degree in clinical counseling that I obtained through the University of Nebraska at Omaha. And in that program, you have to do internships and residency. So before you can be licensed, then you have to have extra hours to get licensed. Um, so that's my background. I've also studied outside of the country and different to gain an access and an understanding of different models of therapy that aren't necessarily um, it's not that they're not taught here, but they're not focused on here or emphasized. So it gave me a deeper understanding of, let's say, psychodynamic theory from, a European perspective, which was really helpful in understanding kind of where my model was going or what it didn't include, if that
That's
makes sense.
so, I'm going to stop you for a second because I think that's really interesting because a lot of the learning that I've gotten on fascia has been out of the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you have to reach far and wide to learn, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, our educational system, at least in this program, when I went into the program, it was really starting to get very clinical. And so a lot of the older theories that were just dynamic, like Gestalt and psychodynamic theories, they were talked about. We got a little smidgen of them, but the main focus was on cognitive behavioral work. So I really felt that I needed to understand those theories better uh, to just have a wider perspective of what I'm doing with people and why.
Mhm.
So it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe several years into my practice that I really became really interested in more mindfulness based or body based models and how they integrated with the more psychological models. So I think I was always interested in it from my personal perspective because it helped me, but I wasn't really quite sure of how to integrate it. So a lot of my I have this arc of, going from starting out as a pure cognitive behavioral and some psychodynamic, all the way to the other end of the spectrum of being more integrative and looking at um, the body, the mind, the spirit, the consciousness, what we do in our lives that all integrate into a cohesive understanding of the self.
So
So,
when you say an integrative psychotherapist, that's what you mean is integrating mind, body, spirit, or
yeah,
integrating techniques, or all the above.
yes. And it's really based on where the client is and being able to pull and extract from all of these different areas. So, for example, if I have somebody who is really against, let's say, pharma meds, then I'm going to pull in nutrition. I'm going to pull in all of the things that we know about what can holistically help someone deal and cope with depression. And not just cope, but reverse it, right? Whereas somebody else might, be dealing with more physical sensations, right? They're a bottom up person. We call it a bottom up person, body first, then the mind. I'd be working with them with a lot of body based or somatic types of therapies because they feel it first and then they start to understand it.
Mhm.
Top down, it's the opposite, right? It's
Yeah.
everything's in your head. You're cognitively trying to analyze it almost to the point of paralysis and not really paying attention to the body. But you have to start with people here first
Mhm.
that are there and then get them to kind of drop into their body and see that there is a major connection between what is going on up here and what is going on in here.
Yes, Lisa and I joke that my people are the body people and her people are the head people, and we actually cross refer quite a bit
Yeah,
because I
absolutely.
get people that come because they have pain, but they are so in their head they've got to get to Lisa before we're going to make a lot of significant progress.
Right. Well, and vice versa, right? Because when you're working with someone all of a sudden out of the blue, uh, they might have an emotional reaction to what you're doing. And that's felt in the body first. And then there's kind of surprised, I think, like, oh my gosh, what made me cry or what made me, you know,
Mhm.
uh, experience that. So then they're ready to actually kind of process from a cognitive place or from a brain
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, so I would, sorry, were you gonna say something else?
No, I just said about that connection.
Okay, so I would also like you, if you're willing, to share a little bit more about other things you've explored, because I would say Lisa and I are similar in terms of we're both explorers. We don't we look outside our own profession for other ways to help people. Like I've studied Reiki and yoga and meditation and things like that as well. And you have studied a lot of other modalities, like the Bach remedy, essential oils, um, and you know what I'm talking about
Yeah,
and where I'm
absolutely.
going with this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a much more holistic approach. I'm all for, but my movement towards that really, the basis of that is, um, I'm not a big fan of pharma meds. I think they're important and they're very helpful, but I think it should be, in my personal opinion and my professional opinion as well, the last thing that we look at because it does change the brain chemistry. It changes everything that's going on. It can change you hormonally. I mean, there's just so many things that happen when you take a pharma med. So my kind of movement was to look at more of a holistic or natural approach, which brought me to, okay, how do flower essences work? You know, do they work? Is there a change? I found that they're very helpful, even though the research is hard to come by. Um, but sometimes it's hard for people to stay on top of it because, if it's not a med that I need to take every day, they forget that it's still a medicine. So Bach remedy uses essence of flowers or herbs, but mostly flower remedies that are suspended in a water and alcohol type of tincture that you drop in your water and you take every day. And it's the only system that focuses solely on emotional components. They don't really focus on physical experience or ailments. So that's what Bach Remedy does. I do a lot of mindfulness, different types of trauma-informed mindfulness-based meditations. But you know me, I go all over the place. It's like one day we're going to focus on, body-based trauma-informed meditation, which is different than, let's say, balancing out the energy system, which is also different than maybe doing meditations that are more shamanic or taps into the subconscious and unconscious part of a person. And that's really interesting to me because, I feel like we are 90% of the time, maybe more, motivated from our unconscious than we really want to admit. And so uh, it's great to see that material kind of move up from the unconscious to the subconscious in symbols, and then be able to see where that flows in our life. So there's another area that I tend to kind of focus on. And then there's nutrition, right? Like I love that. But also the body. I mean, yoga, everything that you've mentioned, they're all ways of dealing with the whole system and not separating um, mental dis-ease from body dis-ease. That separation just it makes it easy to cognitively understand it, but it's not the way the body works.
Yeah.
So
Agree. I think we come from really different perspectives, but we agree on so much, and that one core principle that you just can't separate it. So okay, so yeah, that's what I want. The point I want and everybody to understand is just how diverse you are in your background and how many things that you've explored. And I think another commonality between us is that we don't just start grabbing things and trying them. We're looking for the science. We're looking for this as much science as we can find to guide us in terms of that. But we both have a lot of years behind us in clinical experience, which is one leg of that, the three-legged triangle of evidence-based practice, right? There's a science, there's a clinical experience, and then you touched on the third, which is the client values, which is what you said. People don't necessarily want to turn to drugs right away. They want something more holistic. They want something that's non-traditional, perhaps. So,
well, I think people have forgotten that they are really truly their own healers. The body can heal, but we have to pay attention and we have to listen to it. And
mhm.
and I think we've been taught to rely on things outside of us. And so that knowledge has kind of been repressed, maybe from a psychological perspective. I believe it's been repressed. And so when you marry up these two things, right, the body and the mind, and you go inward, I think that you find your own healing, and you also find that there are things that you had not thought before would be helpful because the immediate response is, oh, I have depression, I need an antidepressant. And again, I'm not poo-pooing that. I really am not. I really do think that there's a place for it, but um, I'm a true believer that we need to follow our own wisdom and our own intuition because we know our bodies better than anybody else will ever know them, doctor,
And
therapist included.
yes, agree. And one of the things that I love that I've heard you say many, many times in the course of the time that I've known you is that, we're not broken. We just have to uncover things. We have to create the conditions that we need in order to heal ourselves. And we don't use our intuition anymore. We don't, we're told we're a machine. You just need to be fixed, right? But that's really not, it's not how it works.
Yeah, and boy, talk about those narratives, right? We have them for our self-expression, and we also have narratives around our bodies. And
Oh,
those
yes.
narratives are damaging.
Hmm.
So it's
Hmm.
not, that's where I come from, that idea of we're not broken. You're not broken. It's the narrative is pushing up against your truth. And it's quite uncomfortable to have to go, wait a second, maybe that narrative isn't true, which we tend to do cognitively. We'll go, oh yeah, I know that story of I'm not good enough isn't true. But if you
But I still
stop
feel that.
yeah, then it just keeps going, right? You have to your body is telling you something different because it hasn't been uncovered yet. It's dealing with all of these layers of repression where that narrative just repeated and repeated and repeated in your life.
Yeah.
So, and then to just kind of go back, because I know you mentioned, we're looking for the evidence and we're exploring. I mean, you and I do share that, right? Like I will try anything pretty much other than maybe being shut in a casket for several days or something like that. But I will try anything to see what the results are for me. And if I see something or experience something that affects me or changes me in a positive way, then I'm going to start looking for the research to see if there's anything out there that supports what I just experienced.
And all that said, I still am a big believer that we're all an N of one. We're our own experience, or our own experiment. And just because a study says this works, it doesn't mean it'll work for you. And just if a study says this doesn't work, doesn't mean it won't work for you.
Well, girlfriend, don't get me started on the research stuff because we're going to take this in a whole different direction.
Yeah, let's be careful. Let's maybe take it to where our careers are now intersecting, and that's the workshop that we created. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So are we in our fourth year of doing this workshop now?
I believe so. Yeah.
2025? Yeah, because I think we started after COVID.
Did we start after COVID or did we do our very first one?
I don't remember exactly.
It was somewhere in there because I remember that people were coming with masks.
Oh, okay. Yep,
I
you're
don't
right.
know if it was right after or during that time where COVID was still a pretty big concern for people.
And some
Get,
people were starting to unmask and some people still weren't. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so we started a workshop and the workshop that I've been doing for 8 years now is the self-treatment workshop, the myofascial self-treatment workshop, where we're teaching people how to take the principles of fascia work, which are essentially the research supports those long, slow holds start to help to open up and balance the fascial system. And not everybody can, well, in my practice, we do the work, we do the hands-on work, but then we want to teach people how to self-treat so that they can do the work in between. They don't become reliant upon us. Their tension's going to be coming into their bodies for the rest of their lives because we just don't let go of our jobs. We don't let go of our family that might make us crazy. We don't let go of the current events. So we've constantly got tension coming in, and most of us have old stuff we're still constantly trying to work through as well. So having a way to chase and balance chase the tension out and balance the fascial system is what this workshop is all about.
yeah,
And I, at some point, know I had several clients who really needed the process of dealing with their emotions or their past traumas and would say, hey, I know this gal who's really good at helping people with that. But my more body-based people are really resistant to that.
Mhm.
So rather than getting them to go seek one-on-one, well, I brought Lisa in to say, what if we combine our superpowers here and we layer on an emotional component to the work that I'm already doing.
Right.
And we had some wine, had some sushi, talked it over. And I think we've come up with something really cool, and it's kind of evolved since the first time we taught it. And I think it'll continue to evolve. And part of it is because we learn from experience. And part of it is because there's constantly new information and research that's coming out that's guiding and informing both of us.
Yeah, I think when we first started that, I don't remember us ever talking about any research of how the emotional, psychological issues that people are dealing with relate to the fascia system. I don't think there was, I mean, there might have been something out there, but I don't think that we had seen that yet. And today, I mean, there's quite a few pieces of research that are going, hey, let's see what happens with this, and let's see what happens with, the the body when this is also a part of it. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
It
the research from my perspective that pushed me in this direction was not necessarily research that says you should do this, it works. It was the research that says you have 10 times more nerves embedded in your fascial system than you do in your muscular system. You get more information from your fascial system to your brain, from your fascial system to your brain than your visual system, than your skin. And the fascial researchers saying your fascia is your system of interoception. And interoception is the ability to feel into your body and experience not just the physical things of my stomach is full or I'm hungry or I have to pee or my muscles are tired. It's also, I have butterflies in my stomach. My throat is tight because I'm scared to say what I want to be able to say. And so
right,
knowing that, so my assumption was if that is true, then if your fascial system is overly tight, which happens, and that's what I want to talk about next, which happens especially in people with past trauma or depression or constant daily stress. If your fascial system is too tight, you're not going to be able to experience the sensory input inside your body, the interoceptive input, in a complete or an accurate way.
right.
So if we open up the fascial system and balance it, then those emotions, I mean, I think that's what happens when you talked about earlier, that suddenly I'm working on somebody and they start to cry or have a memory because you're opening up the body and the memories that happen and are stored in the body and the brain can be more felt and processed.
Well, yeah, and then when you think about it, we do know this. We know that trauma from a memory perspective is fragmented.
Say
So
say more
it's,
about that.
well, we don't remember it in a linear way. We get bits and pieces of it. So it's not a full picture, is basically what I'm saying from a memory perspective, but
Okay.
also from a somatic perspective, it's also fragmented. So we're dealing with two areas, we'll say, that are fragmented. And when you put them together, when they start to interconnect, which is where I think the fascia system is the most important, right? It connects all that. Then we're dealing maybe with a fuller picture,
Mhm.
you know. So yeah, it's fascinating to me, and where you kind of, this is where I think it's so fun because we're very similar, but we're also very different in many ways. Like you can that research right off, right, and put it all together, and it sounds so intelligent and knowledgeable. And I learn first through like maybe intuition, but through what I'm bringing, what I'm bringing up. And it reminds me of when I came to see you. And I think this is where my idea of, oh my God, we could connect these things.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, was having some trauma coming up over some
Can you go
things.
back a little bit farther and tell them why you came in the first place? Is that okay?
Why I came to,
Was it your wrist?
well, I've seen you for so many different things, girl. Yes, that was traumatic in and of itself. But I
Mm.
think this was before the wrist, Amy. It was, I can't remember exactly what triggered it. And but I know that I
Oh,
was
I know what you're talking
dealing
about
with
now.
a lot of emotional, psychological trauma, and things were starting to kind of bubble up to the surface in these fragmented pieces. And the next thing that happened is my body reacted in my rib cage. Do you remember that?
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah.
Okay, so the pain was, I mean, I literally thought I was either having a heart attack. I thought something was seriously wrong, but it hit me. It was like, well, before you rush to the hospital, maybe what you're feeling emotionally is connected to this. So I came to see you, and I was like, I think I'm having body memory. I think this is what's going on. And you worked on me. And I was like, oh my God, within the next day, that pain was completely gone within hours of you working on that area. And it was specifically, I remember walking in and going, I think we're going to do something different today. I think there's body memory here that needs to be released. And I want to release it this way because it was too painful for me to process in my brain. Within hours, that pain had reduced by half. So I think that was the moment where I was like, I just saw this really cool connection in real time. And if it works for me, I know it's going to work for other people. We just have to hone in and try it. And I think, yeah. So we approach it in different ways, but we land in the same place, which is
Yeah.
really, really cool.
Yeah, it is. It is. We've had many discussions where I'm like, I am not following you, and then vice versa. But we eventually figure it out because, I mean, that's the cool thing. It's about discussion and discourse, and trying to find the common places. And yeah, I'm getting a little teary right now because it's very meaningful to me to have those professional relationships that I can do that, especially when and we haven't talked about your practice really, but Lisa is also in a her own practice.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So we're integrating our practices in a particular way
Mhm.
through this model of therapy and model of the fascia system and how it really relates to stress, tension, trauma. It's really pretty cool. But at the same time, we retain our own independence, which I love. So it's a little
Yes.
interdependent
Yes.
relationship that we have.
Both of us are a little bit, well, a lot independent and, want to make our own decisions. And so, okay, so the workshop then is basically the self-treatment workshop that we do where we take the soft therapy balls and we work through the entire body, but then we layer on a sort of a meditation, right? And I get people started doing the releases and instruct them and how to use the balls and where we're going to go and kind of what it's going to look like and what it's going to feel like. And then
Yeah.
then what do you do, Lisa?
And sometimes it is more of a meditation. Other times, like again, it continually evolves with us. So, really, what we're doing is we're trying to understand what kind of deeper trauma might be embedded in those areas of stuckness. And whether we do that through meditation, to a guided imagery, or we kind of just guide the person to see what starts to bubble up, right? Um, and as those things bubble up, we're releasing at the same time. So we're letting go of the physical sensation. We're understanding the memory or the story that goes along with it and the emotional component of it. We're marrying up the body with the mind and then releasing both of those things at the same time. Um, and I lost my train of thought.
We also layer in breath work with it as well. We teach them diaphragmatic breathing, make sure they're using it, make sure they're going at a slow but comfortable rate of breath. And that I think is an important layer as well in stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. And to be clear, we're not guiding them into here's what you feel or you should be feeling in this spot. We just tell them to feel what they feel, and is a memory coming up for you? Is there a emotion associated with it?
And oftentimes that takes, this is why it's such an art, right? Like you can't give it to a person because that's your truth. And I don't know what you've been through, but I can guarantee a couple of things. One is we've all had our stability and insecurity question, uprooted in some way at some point in our lives. We've all felt disempowered. We've all felt stuck in our creativity, right? All of those things, I think, can have a eventual basis in trauma. A lot of times it is related to some kind of trauma that was experienced. So the guidance is kind of tricky because some people can, I remember that. Some people can go, oh, that feeling in my knee is simply from the surgery. It's hard sometimes to get people to understand that there may be more embedded in that place that you're feeling the tension without telling them what you think it might be from a maybe psychological perspective, at least from my end of it. So,
Yeah, and we actually have had numerous people come to the workshop thinking that my trauma was this. And I'll give a kind of a generic one, accurate but true. But one woman that came and she had had a really bad car accident, and she had multiple things happen to her body in that accident. And as she worked through the different areas with the balls, each little piece that we were doing, she was saying, I thought I was going to have trauma related to my car accident. This is not the trauma that's coming up for me. It was going further back from that. And it doesn't matter what's coming up, but it's probably something that needs to be dealt with and was stuck in her body pre-car accident, which that's the thing that we talk about in the fascia work is you have layers and layers of tension that you have
yep.
to work through, but it was taking her way back. And I want to be clear too that in our workshops, this is not like a rebirthing workshop where people are flailing and crying and screaming. It's
Yeah. I
it's
was
a
going to
very subtle release,
gentle. And
gentle.
that's the point I wanted to make as well. Like we're not, and that
Not
not
that we
to
haven't had tears. We've had tears.
yeah, and
But
it depends upon the group a lot of times. If they feel more
mhm.
cohesive and they share more, then it can be a real, from my perspective, a beautiful symphony, right? Because I live for those days of,
Yes, you do.
but I
Oh.
do find that what we're doing is way more gentle than other forms of releasing trauma. And it feels safer, I think, for people. When you talk to people who are coming into therapy for trauma, um, healing, trauma resolution, there's quite a bit of anxiety around what am I going to bring up? How do I do this? And
Mhm. Yeah,
this
definitely.
gets people focused in the body. And as a, added benefit, the other part of it subtly lets you bring up whatever it is that's coming up and not worry about where it's layered, right? So even with the woman that you were talking about, right? It's quite possible that she resolved or let go of a lot of the trauma that was associated with that accident, but where it connected up was something that her brain, her cognitive executive functioning all was never going to, it would take a long time, a long, long time for that to be uncovered in therapy, quite honestly. So, and it happened just like that. And she felt really good, I believe, like she felt a release, but she also didn't feel unsafe
Mhm.
or exposed or vulnerable. And I think that's a really big point that I think we have to say about our workshop is that while it may seem like you're walking into a vulnerable situation, you're really not, because
It's
most
a
process
small
and
group, no more than, I don't think we've ever had any more than 12 in the room. It's brightly lit with big windows and, it's not dark. There's no thumping music. It's very relaxing music that we put in the background. And of course, the soft, soothing sounds of Lisa Basili's voice.
I don't know about that. We
You've
have to
had
start
many
in the
comments on
afternoon for that.
you what?
We have to start in the afternoon because of that. I tend to have a much more growly voice in the morning.
Yeah, well, we usually do, but many people comment on the when you go into meditation mode, your voice just becomes extremely soothing. It's lovely. Even more soothing than it is right now. Another person I wanted to bring up who had come to the workshop, and this particular person had been to the other workshops that I've taught, the more standard issue myofascial self-treatment. And one of the comments that she brought up was, boy, this is part of my body that I've been working on for a long time. And usually when I use the balls at home, but usually she said, I was really surprised today when, as soon as we layered on the meditation aspect, she's like, my pain went right away. She's like, this was so much, felt more quick and more complete in getting the pain out of my body.
And we over time saw that that was consistent, that
Yes,
the release time was smaller, shorter uh,
correct.
than, yeah, yeah. It
Which
just goes,
which blows me away. And I can't find any really thing to support that in the literature, but it's if it's happening, it just hasn't been studied yet.
right. And there's no better way than to see if it's working than real time.
Mm.
I mean, I think this is where research kind of comes into the play. You have to be able to observe something that's different than you have observed before in order to go, maybe I should study that.
Mhm.
I think we have to remember that research is born out of ideas um and experiences that we're having in the real world of our work environment. They're not just necessarily coming from, I read a piece of research and this is where they failed in that research, so now I'm going to take this piece and research it. A lot of it is experience and going, that's not,
Yeah,
I didn't.
or born from some unexpected or unintended outcome. And I will often on this podcast make a call. I don't know who else is listening out there, but if there's an academic who wants to partner up, I'm game.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. You know, I often get a little frustrated with that because the only um, people that really can research in my field are people that are PhD level associated with universities. And I just feel like you're missing a whole bunch of information because we're the ones who are working with that person and groups of people that often have the same themes. We notice themes that show up between all these people that don't even know each other. And it's like, oh my gosh, but we're not necessarily invited into those circles. And I really think that we need to be to work together because, yeah,
It's a little different in the OT world, a little bit different, but it's still, um, I don't know. This is what I love because I lived in that world, right? And I love this world of private practice because you can just be so nimble and you can have the idea. I can see the intersection of the work experience and the literature, and let's try it, Lisa. And we do. We do. We put it out there. We tried to explain what we were doing in a way that people would understand it. And it's happening. It's happening. And each time the workshop gets a little bit bigger and we've expanded it to different ways. It evolves and it's just really super fun and I think really wonderful for people.
yeah. And I think, we talked about this before we started, the workshop that's coming up. I was like, oh, I've tweaked it a little bit.
And I'm like, how, Lisa?
Amy is always like,
What?
oh no. Amy is much more structured, much more cohesive in that way. I can be a little unhinged, just
Right. The first time
in a
you were like,
positive way.
I remember the first time because I'm like, okay, let's get together, make our agenda. And you're like, oh, I'll be fine. I'm like, well, I won't actually if I don't have an agenda. So,
I know.
we
We've
made
come a
it work.
long way.
And I have as well. I don't, I'm much more chill and we kind of show up and we sort of touch
Yes.
base, anything new, anything different. And
Well, and I
we,
did say weave, right? Because
yes,
yes. Funny side note, the very first workshop that we did, Amy usually will do the the movement with everyone. But I would notice that Amy's eye would pop open to look at the clock to remind me, which she needed to. Okay, bottom line is she needed to because time does not exist in my world. And she would have to cue me to stop and start moving out. Today, I actually, the timing is
it's coming.
pretty good.
It feels more. I think it's important. Well, one of the reasons that I'm concerned about it, and I think now you kind of understand why, is I think it's important that we get through the whole body,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? And if we don't
Yes.
watch our time, we
Yay.
can't do that. And that reminds me of another fun thing that we do to make the workshop more personal is when people start streaming into the workshop, we have a big whiteboard and I draw a very crude shape of a body. I'm getting better at drawing the body shape. And then as people come in, we have them just make little X hash marks on where do they feel any pain sensation or tension sensations in their bodies.
Mhm.
And then you and I look for themes as to what the people that happen to be there that day. And then we sort of talk out what places are we going to put the balls. So we try to customize it for each group that shows up too.
Right. And then we integrate a narrative or emotional part of it. They also get a form, a little chart that shows what narratives, what emotional pieces might be going on in those areas that they marked. And it is wildly accurate, is it not? Most times. There are a few outliers where it's like, no, 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 it's somewhere else. But that makes sense to me as well, because just because you're holding the tension here or here doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that the actual source of it isn't coming from that space, from that place. It could be lodged somewhere else. But yeah, it's it's fascinating to me to see people move through it, and
Yeah.
it's fun.
Well, we're kind of at about 45 minutes. So I think what I would like to do is maybe wrap our discussion here. And then what I would love to do is have you back on another podcast so that we can talk more about how past trauma comes into the body, or kind of how it comes into the body via tension, held tension, which then it essentially ends up in the fascial system and the muscular system too. And then we can sort of talk through that process. And I think that might open up some eyes in terms of how trauma connects with pain. And I've got some interesting studies to share on trauma and low back pain and trauma and major depression and fascia. And I just would love to get your take on those things. Are you interested?
I would love that. And on top of that, I would also like to, maybe in the next one or perhaps another one, who knows, but really kind of also talk about how some of the models that we use in uh, trauma-informed care through therapy, such as EMDR or brain spotting, like what we're actually doing over here, why I think that what we're doing, um, dare I say it, is
Say it.
it's cutting edge and
It
it's
is.
more cohesive. What we're doing is not being done with uh, what is currently the informed trauma care that therapists are trained in and used, which is they're great, that those techniques are great. I'm just saying that they're missing a piece of it. And I think that we have that piece that
Yes.
really augment, it's really important because I think the people who are more, psychologically geared, right, may not understand that what we're doing in here is trauma-informed care without doing EMDR, without doing brain spotting. And it includes the somatic system far more than either of those do.
Mhm.
So that to me is
Agree. Agree. And we've toyed around with the idea of creating a course together, and I do have a course that teaches people how to teach the workshops that we do for practitioners, and anybody you're in mental health or OT or whatever, you can take that, but it doesn't specifically have this layer of what you and I do together. So I think it would be fun to create either a layer to that course or its own separate course that people could take to learn how to do this and the science that we use to put it together. But
yeah, well, exactly. And I think the podcast and just the things that we're doing, podcast you're doing and bringing it together, that helps me form in my head what that class would look like, what that part that I have to share with others, how it intersects with your part. So I'm super excited. I love working with you, Amy, as a colleague and as a patient. You
yeah,
know, I don't
same
know
thing.
where my body and brain would be without you. So,
We'll
thank
say we didn't mention this earlier, but Lisa, in addition to her one-on-one work, she also has a weekly meditation group on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock Central Time. And what's your website?
lisabasili.com.
Okay.
Is
Is
it?
it Lisa Basili LLC?
No, it's lisabasili.com. Oh
Oh,
my
Lisa Basili.
Lord.
Okay.
I,
All right. Well, she just changed it not that long ago. So that's why yeah, mine's been marewellness.com forever and ever and ever. Okay, so people can look and learn more about your approach to integrative
yeah,
psychotherapy
oh, love that.
on that website, or even look at the meditation group, which I at first it was really hard for me. I've been a meditator for over a decade, but I could never really meditate more than a short period of time. But
Mhm.
now when I do Lisa's meditations, I'm like, wow, that was really short. And it was 45 minutes. So that
That's
has really helped to train my body and mind to be able to be calm and in that meditative state for longer periods of time. And then Lisa also does many different styles and helps people to really get comfortable with different styles, or even figure out what style you really gravitate to and can do it on your own. So
Yeah, I can't wait because this month, in part, and not this particular month, but this year, we'll put it this way, we'll put it somewhere in there where I'm stranding some pieces of just silent meditation, and which is kind of difficult to do online. So I'm in the process of playing with that a little bit with myself and seeing how that will work. But I'm super excited. Yeah, I would love
yeah, I did
to.
not say that her meditation group is online. It's a Zoom-based meditation, and it's usually starts with a little group coming together, and you can have your video on or not, and then you send out an email with a link and if you've signed up for it, and then attaching the meditation.
Mm.
And then we kind of all close down our video and our audio, and then we do the meditation, then we come back together and have a little discussion on questions or experiences and processing, right?
Yeah, because we used to do it by sharing. I used to do it by sharing the audio, but oh no, I'm going to sneeze. Um, Something happened at some point, and the distortion was so bad that I was like, "This is ridiculous." I'm
I
just going
love the way you do it now. I think the way you
to.
do it now is fabulous. It works really well. And then we get to retain those audio files. And there's been many times where I'll pull up and do it again during the week. And I just anyway. So that's available as well. And then
We do some in person throughout the year. I'll have, for special occasions, come together. But it just seems like online, I end up getting people show up more because they can wear their pajamas. They can keep their head hair
my
wrapped.
my
Doesn't
messy bun in.
um,
And then a lot of your therapy, that one-on-one therapy that you offer too, is also online. And then you also do coaching too, in addition to the therapy. And you also do work with people doing shamanic journeying. Uh, can I say that? Can talk about that too? Because
sure.
I think I've done some of that work with Lisa, and you've also taught a class where practitioners could come and sort of learn that in a little more depth, and that was really meaningful. I don't use that in my practice, but I use personally. I've learned some of those skills and use them, and it's
Well, it's
Vasily,
fascinating.
you're a fascinating person.
Thank you. So are you, girl. It's a great way to tap into the unconscious. It's the only way I've learned how to be able to actually do that with any sense of like, wow, where did I just go and what happened? Where the brain just cannot make sense of it until it actually unfolds. So,
Yeah, there's
um,
so much out there to learn. There really is.
oh God, I know. I know. So I'm never going to learn enough.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to stop recording now, and everybody who's listening can hopefully tune back in, and we'll do another.
No, Amy, they can come to our workshop, which is happening
If
March 14th. Is that
but
right?
well, I think it's the
15th.
15th. Let me.
It's Saturday, the
Well,
I think
this probably won't air until this coming Sunday, the 9th, and then our workshop is the 15th. But I mean, Lisa, there's people who listen to this actually all over the world that I don't think they're going to make it.
that's a shame.
I know. I know. And then people will
But it
listen to
doesn't
it.
mean that we can't figure out how to do one of these workshops online one of these
I
days.
think that we need to consider that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm pushing the stop recording button. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you, Amy, for having me on today. Have a
All right.
wonderful day.
Thank you for tuning in to the Fascia-Informed Therapist. It's been a pleasure sharing insights and strategies to help you integrate fascia science into your practice. I'm Amy Mayer, and I hope today's episode has inspired you to explore further and take your therapeutic skills to the next level. Remember, we're committed to creating and providing top-notch, evidence-based, fascia-informed continuing education that empowers you as an occupational therapy practitioner. Stay connected with us for more enriching content, and don't forget to check out our online courses to deepen your expertise. Until next time, keep expanding your knowledge, refining your skills, and confidently applying the science of fascia to your practice. Here's to advancing together in health and wellness.